one of the first steps I often invite people to do is name the transition, because what that does automatically, it starts to create some space between you as an individual and the situation, right?
Yeah,
And so
so
that in
good.
itself can
So
be very
good.
powerful.
Hi, Sheetal.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. It's so good to have you. And I am excited to talk about this topic today. So yeah, tell us a little bit about what you do and where you are in life.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to be a guest on your podcast. I'm really excited to be here and for our conversation today. So, I'm Dr. Sheetal Ajmani. I am a pediatrician by training, and I'm also the founder of Radiant Living Institute, where I guide people to get unstuck and learn to live radiantly again. So, through that, my background obviously is in medicine as a physician, and I'm also a trained certified yoga instructor and Ayurveda lifestyle consultant. And so what I've done is I have over 2 decades experience of studying both of these Western as well as Eastern modalities of healing and well-being. And I've really brought them together into my signature coaching programs, workshops, and speaking engagements.
Yeah, so it seems like there's quite a few things that you have an expertise in. So what does a coaching session look like then?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you asked. So, I have, my signature program is called Reclaim Your Radiance. And so, when someone uh, comes to me for coaching, that's where we start. We start with that program because that really lays the foundation for the empowering you with the tools, the routines, the habits that you need to move forward from wherever you are, from whatever that place of stuckness looks like for you. So oftentimes that can look like navigating a life transition, something like career burnout or a career transition or empty nest syndrome, or a new health diagnosis or divorce or relationship change, any of those sort of major transitions in life, or just those periods in life where we feel like we need to kind of reconnect with ourselves or rebuild in some way, shape, or form. And we might not know exactly what that looks like. So, when you come to me and we start working together through my signature program called Reclaim Your Radiance, basically what I've done is taken over 2 decades of this study of Eastern Western modalities, pulled out what I have found to be the most powerful tools for healing and well-being and recovery and for navigating life transitions and for grief healing, and pulled out the most powerful tools and principles that are talked about in these ancient sciences of yoga and Ayurveda, and that are also backed by modern science. So it's really cool. These tools are really, really powerful. And through that, I've created a 6-step method. There's 3 phases with 2 steps in each phase. And so that's the journey that I guide people on. So, very briefly, to continue to answer your question, those 3 phases, just to give your listeners kind of a general overview of that, I call it my car method. So part of Reclaim Your Radiance is my car method. And that is, to get from anywhere, to get from where you are now to where you want to go, I propose that you need some sort of vehicle, and I propose that that vehicle is a car. And where C stands for clarity, A stands for acceptance, and R stands for rebuilding. So that is specifically the journey that I guide you through, where first we take a look at getting clarity, because so often when you're in the middle of a situation like that, it can really feel quite like chaos, right? It can often be hard to even kind of think straight or think clearly when you feel like your whole world has really just flipped upside down. And so that's really the first step. And I guide clients through specific tools and specific practices to move to that place of clarity. And then from there, we move into a phase of acceptance. Acceptance is all about grounding yourself in the present moment. And to do that, the primary tool I use is cultivating the mind body connection. Now, within that, there are so many tools to draw from. So it really is, this approach is not a one size fits all approach, right? There's certain phases, but then what's really special is that when we are working together, I help you fine tune these practices and these tools and these phases for your specific situation and your specific lifestyle. So that's the acceptance phase, clarity, acceptance, and then rebuilding, right? So then rebuilding is where we actually start to look at the world around us, like
Mhm.
our relationships or our work or our career, and we can start to make some changes there. So, another thing I really want to highlight here is that this process really starts from within, right? So I guide you on this journey. I always say that a radiant life starts from within. And so often when we're going through these really tough situations, the first place we tend to look towards is
Outside.
our external situation to make a change,
Yeah.
right? Like maybe a new job or a new relationship or moving to a new city will make me feel better. But really, really, it starts from within. And so that is the journey that I guide individuals on. So you'll notice like clarity and acceptance, that's all inner work. And then we move out to kind of the external situation and our relationship to our external world. But here's the thing as well. Don't get me wrong. When
Yeah.
we start from within, right?
Hmm.
It's not like you have to wait for that third phase because this is generally about a 6-week program that I guide clients through.
Hmm.
But you don't necessarily have to wait for that 6th week to actually see change and transformation occur in your life. I see clients, and within that first module, they're already starting to see transformation because the change really does occur when you start from within.
Yeah. Yeah. So I completely agree. The time of any transition, whether it's divorce, career transition, um, a health diagnosis or something like that, it can be a time of so much confusion, right? So that's
Mhm.
why it's great that we start with clarity. And then there are so many challenges and obstacles that are unique, right, to people who are going through a transition
Yeah.
that also need to we need to focus on. What support systems do you think people can create when they're going through a life transition so that they
Yeah.
can come out on the other side?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you mentioned a great point that there is like this a lot of unique challenges and situations that come up when you're going through a life transition. And, one of the big things is that there's grieving involved with any life transition. And,
Mhm.
I say this even, even with like quote unquote positive life transitions, there's grieving, right? So, like, some of the life transitions that I mentioned before were, like burnout, career transition, divorce, that sort of thing. But, getting married, having a child, like these are all quote unquote positive life transitions.
Mhm. Yeah,
But even those have some phase and some component of grieving because
there is some loss involved.
there's
Yes.
always some loss involved, right? Because in order for any change to occur, that means by the nature of change that something is
Something else
going
has to go.
away or you're losing something, right? Or it's changing in some way, it's shifting, it's not going to look the same as it did before. But in that, it's also creating space for something new and different. And sometimes it can feel so. On the one hand, there is grieving involved, right? So just allowing yourself to process that grief. And then also learning how to also embrace and cope with that uncertainty, right? So, where are you going to find your certainty, your anchor
Mhm.
through this change, right? Because often it's
Okay.
that uncertainty that causes so much fear and worry and anxiety. Because when you're in the middle of it, often it can be really hard to know what it's going to look like on the other side, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But that's part of the process and that's part of the transformation. And so through my process and through my method, really I help individuals ground into their sense of self,
Mhm.
cultivate that connection with their deep inner self as their anchor, as
And cultivate,
well as
yeah.
specific habits, like empowering habits and routines to ground yourself into those routines as well as through cultivating the mind body connection. So, really empowering yourself with these tools so that you can, one, obviously clear through some of that chaos, as well as allow yourself space to grieve and process that and find some acceptance through that and create the habits, the tools, the inner connection to help be your guiding light
Yeah.
through this phase of uncertainty to help get you through the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. And also cultivate that safety, sense of safety within, so that you can process all the changes that are going through in your life. What do you say to
Absolutely.
what do you say to women who might be going through, women or men, going through any transitions at this time?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I would say is be kind to yourself and practice self compassion. I think a
So
lot of
important.
times we're so used to, achieving and knowing the answer and having a plan, right?
Mhm.
And so when you're going through a life transition, a lot of that goes out the window.
Yes.
Right? All of a sudden, your plan looks completely different, or you don't know what it looks like anymore because so much has changed and shifted, you know? And a lot of times we can expect the same out of ourselves
Mhm.
during that phase as we do during times when life seems to be going smoothly, right? Meaning, a lot of times we can expect from ourselves that we quote unquote should be doing all the same things that we do when life is going smoothly, right?
Right.
Exercising the same way, eating the same way, showing up at work the same way, showing up for our friends and family the same way. But the fact is that this may be a time that you need to be a little bit more gentle with yourself
Mhm.
and be kind to yourself and practice self compassion. You know, one thing I always invite people to do is also name the transition that they're going through,
Mhm.
because sometimes you're just going through it and you start to identify yourself with it, right? You start to identify yourself with the burnout, with the divorce, with the empty nest, with the health diagnosis, right? But you are not that thing. You are not the divorce. You are not the career burnout. You are not the anxiety. It's something you're going through. So that's one of the first steps I often invite people to do is name the transition, because what that does automatically, it starts to create some space between you as an individual and the situation, right?
Yeah,
And so
so
that in
good.
itself can
So
be very
good.
powerful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. Is there anything that I forgot to ask that you would like to touch on?
I think those were some great key points. I think just continuing to go back to the point that I just made of practicing self-compassion. Honestly, I think that's one of the biggest ones.
Most important.
And you asked earlier about kind of what sort of support should people seek out, or what sort of support is there. And I really, I think of like the village, right? Like a village.
Mhm.
As humans,
Yes.
we used to live in villages, and there were, we knew who to go to in our village for specific things, right? And so when you're going through a transition, see if there are ways that you can build your village, right? And that may come with reaching out to or opening yourself up to different people in your life with different roles, right? And everyone plays a different role. Like your family members and relatives are going to be able to support you in a certain way. Friends are going to be able to support you in a certain way.
Absolutely.
Therapists are going to be able to support you in a certain way. A coach, such as myself, will be able to support you in a different way.
Yeah.
So, looking at ways to build your village, because it really is life is multifaceted.
Mhm.
So this process of navigating a life transition is also multifaceted, right?
We need
So
a team.
we need
Yes.
a team, we need a village.
Yeah. So how do people reach out to you or find you?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. So you can find me at my website, radiantlivinginstitute.com. And when you go there, you'll also see you can download a free workbook. So this free workbook goes through those 6 steps specifically with some questions, like journal questions and prompts. So that's free for anyone to download. So definitely, if you're in a place of feeling kind of stuck or transition, definitely download that guide at Radiant Living Institute. Give yourself 20 minutes to go through it, and I guarantee you'll find some clarity there. I'm also on social media, so I can be found on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Sheetal Ajmani, MD.
Yeah, thank you, Sheetal. You shared such important pearls of wisdoms. And I look forward to touching base with you some other time.
Wonderful. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you.